Hey, welcome to Relove Guitars. Sam here, and what we have in front of us this morning is, this afternoon, morning nearly. Anyway, sorry about the white backdrop, I just wanted a clean surface. I need to get some more carpet or something. Anyway, what we have in front of us today is Scott's homemade headless bass, and this thing is actually a beautiful looking thing. It's his first ever bass creation, and he's a kind of an engineer by trade and a gigging musician, so he decided to make his own. And I think as a non-luthier build, it's fantastic. I just love the fact that it's so unique. I like everything that's unique and different, and he's done what I've been doing with some of this Chinese hardware, you know, getting it and making it work and inventing his own solutions to things. So we've got a locking nuts holding the strings on at this end, that's quite some grab, I've got to tell you. Just, I don't know why, but not having them anchored in some way at that end scares the living daylights out of me, but there they are, anchored. The ball ends at this end, and this is a what do you call Overlord of Music Chinese Steinberger copy, which is not a bad thing actually. It's pretty chunky, a bit like the Chinese hardware I use. Doesn't take long before the paint comes off it in use, but this is actually a little bit more hard wearing by the looks of mine. Mine's indoors. Morris has discovered the voles. Morris, careful, that stool's going to go flying and we're going to have an accident, which involves a whole load of batteries spraying everywhere. There's nothing in there really, honest. Let's just move these things out of the way so that we don't have an accident. Or if we do, it doesn't really matter. It's just the cat will get frightened. Anyway, so this is it's got a set of Delano pickups. I haven't seen these before, but an active setup, and I'm not even sure what the wiring is on this, but it's a home concocted thing, and but beautiful. And just the fact that he's played it for 2 years, I think it's just is a really nice touch to it. It has these lovely manta rays inlays all the way down here. So anyways, brought it in for change of strings and a setup, and one of the things that I think I certainly noticed earlier on about the guitar, just a quick look down here, is that actually we've got a bit of a bow in the neck. It doesn't quite flatten out even under tension. Certainly when the tension's off, it goes into a bow hunch, an arch. So even here, we kind of, the action that he'd like, you can hear it's hitting out on early frets. Now it has a first fret system, zero fret system, where the 0 fret is the thing that sets the height of the next fret, and that should be enough technically, but with too much curvature in the wrong direction, that thing is gonna buzz out very quickly. So I think the thing with this needs some new strings on it. So what was that? I know you're curious, you want to know where they are. You can't have them, they're sleeping. They're going to be probably released today, so they won't torment you. Okay. We've got a wobbling stool now, which isn't great. Yeah, so what we're going to need with this is yeah, practically no relief at all, or very little, even under full load. We'd need more than that. So what we're going to do is change the strings, but clean up the fingerboard, give the frets a polish, but actually they may well need to get a little bit of levelling. Excuse me one second. Come on, you can't climb around up there. Come on, down here. It's a total disaster waiting to happen. Come on. Morris, you can't have them. And I'm going to save you from thinking about it. Let's just get my... just leave that there for now. Yeah, so I guess this feels like it certainly needs a truss rod adjustment. Scott set it at the type of height that he'd like it ideally, which is clearly it's going to be a lot lower than, or somewhat lower than it was, and I still think it could be lower when I look at this, but it feels to me like it's going to need bit of buzz. So I think it probably does need a little bit of a level, and I'm just looking, there is a fair bit of wear on the top of these frets anyway. One of the things I wanted to see was the degree of I want to see the degree of wear on that first fret, because perhaps not so much on a bass, but it certainly takes a bit of hammering on a 6th string, the 0 fret principle. So yeah, not a lot of relief. But it's to give it a little bit more relief by bending the neck. Doesn't take much more relief to remove that buzz. So I'm going to adjust the relief a bit. I'm going to lower the action, or maybe possibly a little bit more. The intonation is reported not to be right, so we need to set that. So we'll do all of that stuff and then change the strings and load it up again, and hopefully give them back a nice custom bass to play. But this is not enough curvature in, so I shall get my trusty Truss Rod Adjuster into the end of here. Gosh, it's a little bit worrying, and there's two things going on in this neck. Three things. Oh Lord. A few things. It's actually it is actually got, I mean, it's not the ideal thing to do, hold it like that, but it appears to have a sort of plateau here and then a curve there, so it's stiffened up here. I'm not really sure why. But it's running along and then down, so we've got we have a natural hump here. Now my fret leveling process may just relieve that a little bit because of the way it works, but let's see what an adjustment on the truss rod does first of all. Blimey, if anything. That's a bit of a ominous feel. It's quite stiff. Quite stiff, I think that's an understatement. Can't quite reach it with that. Having a piece of paper on this isn't the right thing, it's the wrong one anyway, but let's find an equivalent. Right, so for this it's going to need a proper key more than a spannery thing, because it needs a good amount of leverage. Now my slightly very untidy spare table at the moment is not an ideal place, but let's get some of these long ones and try them out. Okay. Holy crap! This doesn't feel like it wants to go anywhere. This could be the well, we could be stuck. There's no reason, well, technically there should be no reason why it won't work. It's the wrong size. It's the right one. So I want to slack it off. Oh yeah, just makes scary noises. Thankfully that's moved. Honestly. So yeah, it's in a way one of the challenges for this guitar is clearly not the amount of curvature in the neck. It's the fact the neck has several different. At least two different settings, or two different profiles. So straight away, that gets rid of the buzz on that first fret. So it has helped. Just a quick gander. It's not a huge amount of difference yet. It may be still, it may take some time to undo itself. I'm just looking at feeling the flexibility of this. Still a tiny bit, but not where it was before. Okay, leave it. I'm going to give it some time to settle and keep looking at. Oh, Morris! I'm going to keep looking at the amount of relief that's opening up. It's increased, so that's good. Truss rod is working. It's getting to more of a workable amount. And the interesting thing about this is if we get some keys, we can see how much adjustment we can make on this. What I'll do is I'll take a quick measurement of where Scott set it so that I know what he's aiming for. So at the moment we've got 3.5 on the last fret and 3 fret. Yeah, 3.5 on the low E last fret, and I'll do it in red so I don't mix it up. Low E 3.5, high E 3. The thing about the 0 fret is that kind of mechanically sets the first fret action for you, which is looks silly, but it's a way of telling where it's making the slap, and it's usually going to be somewhere nearer the narrow bit. Okay, so we have a, let's see what gauge these take. We have a rocking thing, which is a mixture of action by the looks of it. Is it a larger one? Action and intonation. I'm not sure which yet, but if I turn this, what do we get? We get, okay, that's the action one, and yeah, it goes down. Yeah, it's a bit clunky like the one I've got on my 6th string. So there we are now. Oh no, it's 2.5, 3.5 still. So it's tilting forward, rocking forward. What happens if we take this one down to, who knows, that's forward and backwards. You'd think that would change the intonation point, maybe. I don't know. What are you doing? No, Morris, you can't go for a walk up there. There's going to be an absolute disaster any minute now. It's going to be my fault. So that moves that one forwards and backwards on a single pivot. That doesn't look like much use. You, come on. You can't chase these. I'm going to release them tonight. Come on, you. Come on. I've got you. I've got you. Go down, stay down. That's going to work. Okay, so I'm going to do a bit of playing around off camera to see what these, find out exactly how these work, because they have there's supposed to be some sort of action adjustment here, but it doesn't feel like it's much. Let's see, we go all the way down. All the way down. I suppose it is an action adjustment. Okay, that is an action adjustment there, but it's weird. It's weird. I think that's also that's the intonation bit. Oh, who knows? They actually physically move as well. I'll work it out. It won't take too long. What happens if I take that all the way out? So that rocks backwards and forwards. Presumably it should push backwards and forwards as well if it wasn't under massive pressure. Anyway, I'll stop this and come back when I've figured it out. See you in a minute. What's interesting, I've just been I haven't quite figured it out, but it's not 100% kind of rocket science, but it's a bit weird. This thing, these saddles sit on a thing, pivoting pivot on an axle there, and all they do is together they move up and down. So they move height-wise by moving them together, and if you set one off against the other, it tilts it backwards or forwards, which just slightly rocks the intonation point, I think, only very slightly, and I can't really see how it does it very far. So just interestingly, just watching the tuner there, I'll do it in this, oh, I won't do it in the upright position because of this jack plug, but it's supported relatively. But just in principle, there's your A, there's your fretted A, which is on, fretted D on, G on, E is tuned a bit flat. It's pretty on, but they're not bad, so I don't think there's a major overall intonation problem the way it's currently set. But I guess what we can try and do is, now I know what the start actions are, I'm going to take a thingy and I'm going to drop each one based on what we've got there. I'm going to drop each one by what am I going to do? Out by, if I can get it plugged in. Is that even in? Yeah, it is. Half a turn, half a turn. Am I actually turning these upside down? Boy, I'm turning these. Let me just take this jack plug out for a second. Just make sure this is actually going into, right, maybe I'm not. Half a turn. Alright, I'll use what I was using a minute ago. Gosh, half a turn. Okay, so oh, it doesn't move, you have to push it, that's the thing. Right, okay. So I'm going to go down a little bit on the action here. Let's push it just for fun. And let's go down, counter, counter, push, click. Okay, we'll go down to, too low. So up a bit on each, up, up. Okay, 2.5. Yeah, lots of nice buzz. Okay, well, the way that the relief is currently sitting in the neck, it's actually playing okay as a single note, open note. Let's just take the other ones down to match. Now that's tilted back quite a bit to get, presumably to get the intonation right. So let's take them all down. So this one. Does this one have this one is physically sighted differently, because these things don't move along this thing. How does that work? Oh, I'm confused. So this is a pre-compensated saddle then? Is that what we're trying to say? I think it's really weird. The fact they don't actually move. So come on, I've got to get my head around this. There's a single bar that runs through, they're all anchored on, and they don't move backwards and forwards, do they? Do they? They do. They're on a slot. Brilliant. Okay, so that's okay. Okay. So why does it rock? What's the point of it rocking? I don't get it. If we've got up and down, backwards and forwards, what's the point of the rocking part of it? Is it just because you have no way of adjusting the whole thing without using two, and the rocking part is an accidental byproduct. That's what it is. Oh, yikes. Okay, let's go back in time. Let's get the intonation right. Now we've got it undone. Strap. No strap. Okay. I may have to backtrack and go and get a strap. Alright, so it's good to work it out. So the rocking part of it appears to be just a consequence or an accidental. I won't do it sitting up. I'll do it mostly in the horizontal position with the neck supported. Okay, so let's worry about intonation first on this guitar. So let's tune it. Wrong way. At least they go the right way on this one. Mine goes the opposite. Flat. Flat. So what does that tell us? Flat means there's too much room, so let's shorten it. Blimey. And we'll move it again. For this, you might need a soft-ended, well, a drifty thing with a thing, just gently knocking it like that to move it along its little track. I guess it's a slot cut. I thought it was around a single central axle, but I'm wrong. Let's see it change. I want to prove that it gets to the right place. Do this end. So we're making some adjustment, and that we should see. Yay! On. Now we'll do the height adjustment second. Don't mind the buzzing. That's flat as well, so we'll walk this one forward as well, and the E is going, not the E, sorry, the G is walking forward as well, so we double check that one. Close, do a tiny bit more. They do appear to walk together if you're not careful. Shut up. Silence everything. Alright, I'll do it in the playing position. Walk it forward a tiny fraction more. As the G goes with it, very kind of it. Well, we can see how far it goes, see what happens to it on its little walk. That's on. That's on. Now, of course, the tuning will change when we raise the saddles. Am I still recording? Yeah, sorry. The tuning will change when we record raise the saddles, raise the action. But the intonation won't, because it's a measure of the distance between nut and saddle. Technically, it'll grow a minuscule fraction higher, as defined by the laws of triangles and things. The long side will technically increase in length if we raise the action. Now I'm trying to just move this one forward without moving the other ones. So this one's still too far forward by the look of it. It's on. So they all came forward quite a long way to intonate. Judging by this. Okay, well, according to that, we are better intonated than we were. You should be able to hear it. It says there's complementary harmonic or something going on here which confuses it. But it's on. Now that's interesting, that's very interesting. So now what we can do is use our little whatsits to change the action. And so I'm going to lower this down and push and watch it sit down on its little haunches. Now theoretically the intonation should remain the same, and I'm just going to now wind up a little bit on each. There might be a micro intonation adjustment with this rocking business which I haven't figured out, but it may be just almost a side benefit. So I'm going to go up, I'm going to sort of work up to 2.5 and see what we get, and then once I get to 2.5 I'll double check the intonation. Okay, 2.5 on that one. Way under on that one, so wind that one up a bit. So that tilts it back, that pushes it forward. Oops, bring that up. Make sure I'm on the right one. So these are strings that are going to go away, so we can afford to be a bit rough with them. So I'm pulling them off the side there like that. So going up in equal measures, we raise the action up to a single point. 2.5, 2.5. That one looks a tiny bit above that one, if I'm honest. I need my special glasses on. Yeah, going up in pairs, it takes it up at the same intonation point, and if there is a tiny intonation difference because of the rock and roll business that we just talked about, then I'll notice it in the intonation, which will just be slightly off. Okay, 2.5, 2.5. Let's go with the measurement. Let's trust the measurement. And providing we've pushed the saddles into the right place to get the intonation correctly, then the rocking part shouldn't be an issue really. 2.5 and 2. Okay, so that's a good spread. Now what I want to do is just double check that intonation. What we could do is plug it in and rock them and see if the intonation changes, but it's sort of difficult to read. It's so minor. this, you know, the amount of intonation difference from that little rocking thing would be so small. Now that one is down, but that one... Now, okay, let's try the rocking business here. Is that going to raise the action if I turn this? It will do, won't it? It'll tilt it up. I'd rather just move the thing to get the intonation right. And press it down again. Ignore those harmonics. Interesting. Interesting. Very interesting. What are you doing? No, I'm going to have to reconsider this because that's showing that the 12th fret on out. Go on. Go on, out. That's what comes from having voles in your shed. I should have released them last night. Okay, so that's interesting. So what it's showing me is we've got an octave there which is in tune, octave there which is in tune. That tells us that the notes in between should be in tune. And they are on this one. Stop. Okay, that's good. So that principle is working absolutely fine on the G. We've got the D. The D is... Oh, I don't even know what the trebles are. Let's crack them all open. Put it on my knee for a second. D. That's the halfway point over the 12th fret, so that's correct. Okay, it depends on how hard you hit it, of course, but so I don't know if you can see those. I'm just checking the notes as we go up. Okay, A is sharp. Okay, maybe the thing was just confusing me. Made me worried for a second because the principle is solid. The thing is, with a bass, what you find it's even more susceptible to variations in pressure, so I can barely fret it, and it's fraction flat of G. Press it a bit harder, it's G. Press it much harder, it's sharp of G. So we've got a kind of range. And to be honest, we can only hope to go somewhere in that range. Okay, I'm happy with the intonation as is, and I'm happy with the action as is. So, although it's a little bit different than a guitar, but it's following the same principle, and it's a little bit more susceptible to finger pressure. So what I've done is I've taken this down to 1 millimetre lower on the bass string, on the bass E, bass or bass strings, 1 millimetre lower on the bass E than Scott set it, just to sort of test it out really. And really there's only we're only hitting some issues right at the top on that bass low E. And some on the top of the A, a few on the D coming from earlier. So at this action, I don't really see any reason why it shouldn't polish out with a fret level. Working with what we've got right here, we've got the action, or the relief should have settled down now. So we can just double check it, make sure it hasn't gone anywhere hysterically high. On its side, it's about 0.3, something like that. It's within a decent range. 0.3 or 0.4 even. Let's have a closer look. It's a little, yeah, you know what, no, it's more than that. It's good, it feels right, whatever it is. So we've got intonation there, we've got action set there, nothing else has to happen. There's no locking of this really. Everything is set. We've started from flat and we've raised up, so everything's under tension. So really the issue now is just to get it with a gentle fret leveling. What we can't do, we can't include the 0 fret in the leveling process because it's actually meant to be higher anyway, so we don't want to grind it down. But we'll have a look at it and make sure that it's in good condition. So I'm conscious there's a large wasp buzzing its way in here, so I'm just going to have a see what the division of marks are on here. Now this thing is starting off concave or something, is that the right word? It's the opposite to what I want it. It's a very flexible bar and it changes very quickly, so I have to be careful of it. It goes in both directions as well, which is quite cool. So I'm just going to eye it up for spacing of the little nuts. That's too far. Wasp, don't come in, bite me please. Okay, that's about middle point. Has it long enough to reach all of them? No. So we'll come in. Let's try that. Okay, that's that and that's that. We're still a tiny bit. We'll go either side and go to there. Now what I'll do is I'll mark these up for a change. Don't need to do it on 6 strings anymore because I'm pretty clear of where that is. Why don't you go outside, Wasp? Thank you. Morris has kind of trashed the far end of this shed. Anyway. I've just seen a little piece of brass, something, threaded something. I'm thinking, no, where did that come from? And it came from the end of the pickup screw. So I'm just marking up the points of order. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to level with this low action set, and the point is it's lower than what Scott set, so if we need to go higher, raise the action up, that's fine, we can do that, but we can still aim to level with this. Now this base truss rod doesn't extend, even though it's a full length truss rod, it doesn't, as you can see, it doesn't go the whole length of the neck, so we still have to do what I would do with the guitar, and that is to, when I level, I still have to kind of go up and reach the far end ones. Now because it's got a lot of flexibility in it, and it's very, very delicate, this one, it's quite difficult to adjust. I'm not 100% convinced it's the best tool for the job. Now I'm going the opposite direction now. It's almost like it needs some extra, needs some grease or something, lubricant in there. Let's do that first. It's a little bit scratchy. Lovely. Yeah, it's a very, very sensitive thing. It's very quick to adjust. I'd much rather it was a bit slower, but it's the kind of price you pay for doing a long length in one go. So let's just close it flat. So the idea is to match the curve of the neck by turning this and putting a slight curve into the truss rod, and it's so sensitive that you get there very, very quickly, and it could even be that you're over past the point, and it may well even adjust as you're using it. So it's extremely difficult. Now I'm just going to look down here, and I should be seeing, yeah, a very slight curve in the concave direction if we're genuinely mimicking the curve on this neck. Now what I want to do is just mark up the strings. I'm going to sort of try and push them out of the way before I start. It's probably a little bit easier than pulling them all off again, starting again. Again, these, don't mind if I get marker on these strings because they're going in the bin afterwards. So setting this really low to begin with just gives me a target that may be unattainable, but if we're going to do the fret leveling, which it needs, because of two reasons really, partly because there's some uneven frets at the end here that I think Scott was pretty sure there was anyway. There's some uneven frets, but also because it has that slight kink down at that end, which is going to prevent a low action, or it's going to demand that you, the only other way you can play it really is it's going to demand a bit of an oversized neck relief in order to cure any buzzing at that end. So with a bit of luck, a slight curved fret level helps to just iron out that flat spot, and it's the same actually that happens on the opposite ends of Les Pauls, where a lot of other people do what's called a fall off or fall away. Anyway, it's just a means of catering or taking into account the stiffness, the relative flatness and stiffness of the Les Paul top end. And interestingly, I've never really found myself having to do it, and I think partly because of this method seems to take care of that. I could be, you know, well, not wrong, it does, I could draw it out on the board, it just gently does. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I've calibrated this, now I need to move the string out of the way, and on this guitar it's going to be a little bit a different kettle of fish. I still want it under tension, and I don't have a fret slot to push it out of, so it's a little bit, it's going to be a little bit more of a thinking game going here. Morris, don't bother getting up on there, don't, please don't, I don't need you knocking more stuff off. I'm going to see if I can locate a little bit of rubbery foam. Let's see if I can pull these off to one side. It might be harder than I think without undoing the whole thing. Just giving it a go. Would that be enough? Just. Let's see. Kind of feels like I need to hold the thing. Yeah, like I say, I don't really want to have to go and take off the whole string. I may have to though, in order to do it. Obviously the area we're looking to work on is the bit all the way down where that E, sorry, in this case the G string plays. So I'm going to very, very lightly let this work its way up and down that little area. I can see, and this is what's good about this method, is straight away if I do a little diagnostic peek, you can see straight away, just based on the setting we've got there, we may be able to see, straight away it will tell you, should tell you, if you can see it, that that's a problem fret, as is that one and that one. So there's a couple of things we knew straight away that there was something going on up here, and then there's a couple down here. But it's a really nice little method because it does highlight that very, very quickly. It's, as I say, it's not absolutely ideal. In fact, I'm gonna, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna, am I going to? I need a little spacer here that's plastic. That's not going to. Let's try this. I just want to get into that space. I want up the sides of this. Ow! Oh, there goes my fingernails. No, I need a little square thing, but it doesn't matter about the string. Just gotta push these apart enough to get into the place I want to get to. That's it. That will do. That end. I don't want to take it off because I don't want to change the overall tension if I can help it. And I'll work either I'll work either side. The main thing is getting into the slot where the strip where the string plays, which is what I'm currently doing. Now this method probably needs recalibrating a few times, especially with this particular bass guitar rod, because it very quickly does up or comes undone because it's very sensitive, so it can quite quickly lose the relief setting that you put in it, or its tendency to. And I can see that it's taken, this is the, was it 12, 13, 14, 15th fret is the difficult one. If I just take out this one now, and we'll just move our spreader. What we've got is we can go to the other side. It's probably easier almost to just pull this to one side and just let me get to the outside of that, just for fairness sake. It's not on the strip where the string actually plays, but it probably looks a little bit better if it all levels in the same kind of way. Okay, so that's back to where we were. Remember, we had some problems up here. Okay, a bit more to do, and that's the top one here doesn't look seated quite properly, but that's good. And what I'll do is it's getting there, and I'm just going to calibrate the tool to just make sure we haven't lost that original curve, or relief curve I should say. And that's the aim of this. That's what these three little feet are for. And actually we've just lost a tiny bit of the curvature, and it is literally, you can breathe on it and it goes off, but it's not so much in one go that it's totally wrong. It's just a very slight change. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to get this, it's scratchy, so I don't want to do that, so I'm going to put a little square of stick here on the bottom so we don't too much scratching. Thank you. I see what it is. It's the, let's put two bits. It's the screw that's just about, don't care about that as long as it's doing its job of separating them out. Can't get the other one round it now. Get in there, you in there, and you in there. Whoa, that'll do. That's cool. And then this spreader down here. And then it gives me plenty of room to get in very gently with a leveler. Not hold, just which is the best bit to hold it? Well, probably the blocks actually, which is going to cause the least turning of the round bar, which is the bit that's going to go out of shape quickest. If you just touch the two of them together, then that will go out. So I'm working a little bit more on these top frets, which I know are problematic, and I'm just going to make sure we actually get to the top one, since it's causing the very last one is causing the problem. And I want to go to the outside of this arrangement again. I won't play with it. Okay, so this last fret is still an issue. Just looking at different ways of attaching this. I'm going to use a bit of wire. String? No, wire. Where's my wire? That's a good question. It's here. Just a bit of a kind of made up way of getting around these things. I'll use some wire just to hold it together. That's probably quite a good way of pulling the string over. Sorry, it doesn't look very glamorous from there. So what I'm going to do, as you can see, is I'll do the same process for all the strings, but I'll recalibrate each time I get to, how do I do this? Let's go under here. Recalibrate for each string track, and then just work on each track at a time. And the thing about this is that if is that out of the way? Yeah, we'll just get it to stay now. Get around this locking thing. It's a bit kind of crude this, but can you just stay there for a minute? Can you stay there? Maybe. Now I've gone the other way on this side, so I'm just going to need to hold that out of the way. Yeah, so it's you can see it's just very gently will take care of these high spots that are causing or preventing the action being nice and low at this end. I'm just doing a little bit of, as you can see some of the wear as well. Oops. So hopefully we'll just get that last high one taken care of there, and we'll drop this off. It's a bit of a crude way to do it, but I don't have the little spacers specifically for bass guitar. You hear that's almost there. It's almost cleared it up. A little bit there, a little bit more to do there. So this is set really low. If you remember, we've gone down to 2.5 or just under 2.5 there, so it's lower than Scott set it, so we may not really need to go any further. We could probably just live with it like that and raise the action to a tiny bit closer to where Scott had it. So let's I'll just what I'm going to do now is move on, calibrate. I'm going to stop with that one. I'm going to calibrate the D track in the same way, but just make sure it follows the relief curve. Don't bother, Morris, please. We don't need you climbing over things. Okay, tiny bit more. Such minuscule amounts of adjustment. There we are, we're at it. But yes, a tiny fraction past it. That'll do. So this time, again, it's the same sort of principle. We want to get the string out of the way, if we can. In a similar way. So we've done that one. Now we want to do this one between this one and this one. Oh, there you go, drops off. Bit of a spreading there, and then spread that one down there. Not ideal. I could do with larger bits of rubber. It's not getting me where I want, that's for sure. So then I tend to start to make other little things to pull things off to one side, so a bit of, not tape or something, but probably a bit of green string, depends where it goes to. So it's all a little bit, what's the word? Yeah, having to compromise, innovate, no, yeah, something like that. But it's just a matter of getting the file into that space where the, in this case, the D string goes, and making sure that we get that top set of frets taken care of, because they're the ones giving most problem at that end, although there is this one here on 15 that's also a problem. So I'm just kind of hoping to guide it a little bit. I'll take this off, take the thing off at this end if we can. And have a play. Oh yeah, without that. Last fret is a doozy, still scrunching it off, so we'll do that a bit more. Yeah, it's very difficult. I may have to make something to spread these strings a bit better, because it's kind of, it's good at that end. Maybe I'll just use this green stuff at both ends. It's a bit fiddly and it doesn't make very good TV, but it probably just about does it enough to pull it off to one side. In fact, it really does. It's not pretty, but it'll do. Garden wire comes to the rescue every time. Now look, I haven't got the ends, so I'm going to have to create a new set of ends. Anyway, right, so you can see the principle. I'm going to stop in a minute, and so I don't bore myself to death, and you. And you can see what I'm doing is just working my way towards, working my way towards leveling out the track. I'm going to use my hand up here to move it as well. So I've definitely got the room I need. Alright, so I'm going to do this for all four, and to ensure that I've got everything taken down to the level I need it, to make sure there are no frets getting in the way, even at this low action. And like I say, we can still have room to go back up a whole millimetre to get back to where Scott had it set if we want to. So a bit fiddly because we stop every now and then, try the action out again, but it's better than taking the strings off. Nearly there. Okay, anyway, I'll keep going, see you in a bit. Okay, we're done on that. Yeah, a lot of high fret at this end. So here we go, time to undo. Slack off the strings, slack off the strings. Hopefully I'll take them all the way out. Just enough out to get them out, if you get what I mean. They just come out in their little shelf or their little drawer, which is easy enough to get out. So what we're going to do next is we're going to reprofile these, get off me, spiders or something, reprofile, resurface the frets and tidy them up or freshen them up if you like, reshape them so they're back to their correct profile. So they look like arches as opposed to flat-topped things, which they currently are. Come on. Thank you. Somebody's got a money spider on their neck. Me. Right. Strings out. Okay, and we're going to undo these. Now this is a hard locking thing. Not that one. Not that one. Find the right one in a second. Is it this one? Is it this one? It probably is. It does. Okay, so there we go. Out come our strings. I've definitely got this spider crawling down my neck that's driving me mad. So off these come. I don't know how much they have to come off. Probably might as well take them right off for a second because we've got to get the strings out. So I'm putting them in the order they were. Let me get these. Should be. Oh right, there's the locking bits. I got you. That's what had me. Yeah, that's what had me before, thinking how the heck do you lock those in? But it's a different. There's two sets of locking things, one to lock it in position, the other one to hold it down, which is cool. So there we go. Nice unit. Nice unit. I want one just like this. Okay, so there. Here's your out, and you're out, and you're out. Glad I saw that. That one doesn't want to come out at all. Okay. Goes in hunt of most important little grub screw. Yikes. Let's put that over the desk, shall we? Over the bench. And this thing really doesn't want to come out. Has it got some... Oh, it does now. Right, out we go. Okay. Coil these up for some other use some other day. Right, there's a new set over there ready. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, first of all, these aren't what I would call, right, that's an interesting one. I'll just have a chance now while we're here to look at the notching on the 0 fret, which actually isn't so bad. And unlike on a guitar where you bend the strings, the notching on a 0 fret on a guitar tends to show up and annoy very quickly because it creates a pinging noise there. But on these, you're hardly ever going to be bending much on the 1st and 2nd fret, or not in the same way as you would on a guitar. So it's not a level to worry about. And the only real thing I'd want to do with that would be replace it when it gets bad. Simply because it needs to be a certain gauge higher than the that's good, missed that. It needs to be a certain gauge higher than the other bigger than the other gauge, so that it keeps the string a certain height above. Now, funny enough, actually it doesn't need to be. It tends to be, and it allows you some room to dress it down over time. and it still keeps a good geometry. But the actual height above the fret is set by virtue of the height at the far end. So if you the actual height of the bridge, so even if you use the same gauge fret here, it would still set a clearance over the first fret. Now on a guitar that's enough, maybe on a bass it might not be, which is possibly why it's made a little bigger gauge. Waffle. Anyway, you get what I mean. So I'm going to use a medium file here, and it's showing up a couple of little bits of wear, but nothing major serious. So you can see a couple of little pits of where the marker pen is still showing up, but it's not enough to keep on hammering at these frets with the fret leveler. If it was notchy, I would have spent more time at that end, but it's not going to be bad at all. The main issue here, and I've always talked about how when you're doing this stuff, you've got to constantly sort of keep shifting priorities, or there's different points of making a judgment call depending on the priority. So the priority here was to get a decent low action, therefore cure the underlying uneven frets which we've got showing up at this end mainly, and then the other priority was to take care of the intonation as well, and then third, I suppose, change the strings. This should be fine. So the action is still currently set quite a bit lower than Scott originally intended it to be, and we may go a tiny bit back up towards his target and away from mine, depending on how it plays. But in a way it's good because I can give him the option to do that. So he can either try it out at the action I'll have put it at, or which will play, or if he prefers, he can go back up towards the action that he chose, which, having measured it, I can tell him what it is. There's intricate information. Anyway, so I'm now coming on to the last couple of fairly flattened frets. So I just take a little bit more time to level those out. Sorry, reprofile them. And particularly this last one, which is a fairly hard hit. Obviously it needed to be. Okay, that's great. That's that part done, so we're kind of buzzing along nicely. I'm going to get some masking tape out, and the job now is to, not with that one it's not, it's to mask off all of the fretboard. And there's not a lot of clearance in this place. It's like being on board a ship, and whenever something hangs down too far, like a piece of sticky tape or a piece of sandpaper like that, a roll of sandpaper, it gets really annoying because it hits my head. Yeah, so we're on the stage now where it's a case of sanding out these frets, polishing them out, and then because we've obviously leveled them, we have reprofiled them or reshaped them so that they're a nice arch form again, closer to their original shape. And now we're going to use a series of grades of sandpaper to polish these up until they're a nice playing shine. And after that, then I'll probably just add some oil to this. I'm not going to. I think I want to clean out the finger oil that's already on there. It's one of those things. If it was a guitar coming in and I was going to do that to sell, then I probably would use some solvent, naphtha, and take out all the previous owner's oil. But this is Scott's guitar. He's been playing it tirelessly for a couple of years, and so this is his natural oil in the fingerboard. So I'm going to just add some to it, I think. Or I'll clean it off to get the grit and dust off, but then I'll just I'll add a bit of oil, but I won't scrub this out, because what you do when you do that with a solvent, it's pretty good. You actually end up pulling out the natural oils, and then you really do have to spend quite a bit of time re-oiling, because it takes an awful lot out. Anyway, just notice that's quite a flat spot there, so I'm just going to my where did it go? What did I spot? There, just there. There you go. Yeah, so I'm not going to bore you with actually seeing the sanding process because it's about half an hour cloud of dust and aerobic exercise, so I will reappear with the frets miraculously polished and the new strings going on, and we'll be heading towards the finish line, hopefully. I've also got to, by the way, as you can imagine now, I've got to go and cut some lengths of masking tape capable of finishing off this, and I can't even stand it. I can't even stand it up, hang it up in a hanger because it's got no neck, and it may frustrate my intentions. Okay, that's one of the tuner things that's come out of its little socket, but that's okay. It will stand up on that stand there while I do this. Put this over with the other important bits. Okay, so see you in a bit, and strings will be going on. Well, there's the fun done. Actually, no, that's the hard work done now. So that was all the sanding, polishing done, and it's time now to remove protective masking tape, give everything a clean, re-lace the strings, and yeah, that's nearly there. A nice little bit of aerobic activity for me of a day. Okay, so this usually gets a fair bit of dust everywhere, so give the whole thing a quick once over, and then it'll be a case of putting new strings on. And given the time and stuff, I won't be stretching those to full tilt, partly because I could see if it's quick that we'll get some of it done. Main reason for doing it when you have a bridge like this is because you need to stretch it out, because pretty soon you put the strings on first, and then you'll probably, as they bed in, you'll probably run out of tuning room, if you get what I mean. As you may actually find you have to slack off, reposition, pull them back through the locking headstock a bit further, re-file out your tuner trays, I suppose you could call them, and refit the strings. So it's something you have to do. It's actually easier with one of these than it is with sometimes with a Floyd Rose. It can be a right pain when you think you've got it all done, and then before you know it you've done a couple of quick tunings and then you've run out of micro tuner adjustment, and that can be soul tapping because you have to slap the things off again, reset your micro tuners, tune up, lock it down. So the secret is to get as much of the slack out of the strings as possible before you lock them down, whichever system you're using, so long as it has a locking part. This is a thought if anyone is bothered to watch this at any point. Question of radii. Some people will say, can you do a guitar with a compound radius? And it may appear, or you may have spotted it from the method I use, that truss rod method is good. I found is very good for levelling with guitars with compound radii. Because of the thinness of the tool that you're using, it kind of, the way I describe it, it respects the radius. So because it does it in very thin slices, it follows whatever the radius is at that point, and it doesn't impose it. It doesn't impose a fixed radius onto the guitar. If you were to try to do that with a sanding block or leveling beam, something with a fixed radius in it, you would find it would definitely mess up your compound radius because it would impose its own radius. And actually, if you're doing it with a thicker, wider tool, like what you might call a standard fret leveling file, you'll find also that sort of damages the compound nature of the radius, because it's so wide. It takes sort of wide or quite broad chunks across the radius. So that's another reason why I like to do this method, amongst others. It's not the primary reason. The primary reason is there was two things really. One is a slight increase in accuracy, although it's not so much. It's just an added degree of accuracy, which is nice to have. It's a nice to have. So an increase in accuracy over the sort of standard flat neck method of fret leveling. But the primary reason I do it is, the number one reason is the fact that it gives you, or it allows me to only level as far as I need to level, and then stop. So by definition, it means I only have to take off only as much fret metal as is required to reach the playing action that I'm aiming for. No more. So it's very efficient in terms of. Oh look, it's some food. I'm going to stop the clock. In a minute you'll see me with some strings on this thing. Ta-da! Okay, so we're at the end. Guitar restrung, oiled, fingerboard oiled, guitar restrung. I've changed around the little locking things at this end because the longer one was overhanging this end, and actually this is probably the end you don't want to feel anything. So anyway, it seems to make sense as well because they're thicker strings, so maybe got to put on back to front in the past. There we have it. So very close to absolutely buzz free, and it is very low. Now I say close to because there's a couple of tiny little hints at that, but we're on 2.5 millimeters, which was a millimeter lower. Millimeter lower than Scott set it. So this is going to obviously tune out a little bit. Strings will stretch, but I think there's loads of adjustment room in there anyway. So we're done on this. That's a nice, lovely, in fact, homemade bass. Basically, what did I do? I put some curve into the neck, which it was sadly lacking. I've now leveled the frets and hopefully just countered this little platform here a little bit. Certainly isn't buzzing anyway the way it was. And there's a millimetre upwards travel available anyway for Scott to readjust it if he wants to go back to the action he set it at this morning. So it's kind of better than expected kind of thing. So, but it's nice to have that flexibility, and that's why I like to aim for a low point in doing the setup. Needed fret leveling, as you saw, followed by polishing, reprofiling and polishing out the frets. It's setting the intonation on this, which is now, according to this device, well, it's still, the strings are still stretching in, so let's just give them a little bit of a pulling. It's quite interesting threading them through. The locking thing at the other end is it's quite hard to get them to go through without, you can't get them to go through flat, so off and on. Come on, that's nice, it's not plugged in. Yeah, it's difficult to pull them through, so you have to let the tuning pull them flat, because they're you know, when they're thick enough, you can't actually manually pull them any flatter than that. You can't get a 90-degree angle out of it. It's lying on its back, remember. Stop it. There we go, intonated, lovely, jubbly. We are done. So Scott's homemade headless bass. Hope you enjoyed watching this. Should be a joy to play now. I'm going to send him a message and tell him it's ready for when he's ready to come and pick it up. There you go.